I remember the day the silence fell over Maple Street. It wasn't just quiet, it was a heavy, suffocating blanket that pressed down on everything. The Martins, my neighbors, were just gone. One morning, their car was in the driveway, coffee still brewing on the counter, but the house was empty. No note, no struggle, just an impossible void where a family used to be. I was the one who noticed their porch light still on at noon. I was the one who felt that first icy dread creep up my spine. When I peered through their kitchen window, it's been years, and that feeling never left me. Every shadow, every creak in my own house reminds me of them. It's like they left a hole in the world, and sometimes, I swear, I can feel something trying to crawl out of it. I remember calling 911, my voice shaking so badly I could barely form the words. The dispatcher, bless her heart, tried to be calm, but even over the phone, I could hear the confusion in her tone. "They just vanished?" she'd asked. That was the only way to describe it. The police arrived, 2 cruisers, then 4. They went through the house with a fine-tooth comb. Every drawer pulled out, every closet opened, but there was nothing. No forced entry, no forced evidence that suggested anything other than a family simply ceasing to exist. The coffee on the counter had grown cold, a thin, oily film spreading across its surface. The morning paper, still folded, lay beside it. It was a tableau of normal life, frozen in time, waiting for people who would never return. The days that followed were a blur of flashing lights and hushed conversations. Detectives questioned everyone on the street, including me, multiple times. They asked about arguments, strange cars, anything out of the ordinary. But Maple Street was, and always had been, a quiet, unremarkable place. The Martins were a quiet, unremarkable family. That's what made it so terrifying. It felt like a glitch in reality. How could 3 people, 2 adults, 1 teenager, simply evaporate into thin air from their own home in the middle of the night? The official explanation, if you could even call it that, was always vague. Foul play suspected, but no body, no motive, no suspects. Eventually, the yellow tape came down. The police cars left, but the silence remained. It settled over their house like a shroud, a constant gaping maw on our street. Every time I looked out my window, I saw it. That perfectly manicured lawn, the closed curtains, the car still in the driveway until the bank repossessed it months later. It was a monument to absence. And the feeling, that feeling I mentioned of something trying to crawl out of the void they left, it wasn't just a metaphor. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled just right or a branch scraped against my window, I'd swear I could hear it. Not voices, not screams, but a soft, almost imperceptible scratching, like something trying to claw its way back into our world, or perhaps out of the place they were taken to. I started leaving lights on all night. I bought a dog, a big, shaggy German Shepherd, hoping his barks would scare away whatever lingered. But the scratching, the whispers carried on the wind, they were always just beyond the reach of my hearing, always just at the edge of my vision. It was a constant, gnawing presence, a dreadful echo that never faded. It's like the disappearance wasn't just a tragedy, it was an invitation to something else. That invitation, it felt like it was specifically for me, because I was the one who found them gone. I was the one who felt that first dread. And now, I was the one who couldn't escape the feeling that whatever took the Martins, whatever left that gaping hole, was now looking at me. The scratching wasn't just on the wind anymore. It was coming from inside my walls. Soft, rhythmic, like fingernails dragging across plaster, just out of sight. My German Shepherd, Brutus, he felt it too. He'd stand by the wall in the living room, hackles raised, a low growl rumbling in his chest, staring intently at nothing. Sometimes he'd let out a sharp bark, then whimper, backing away slowly, as if something unseen. That's when the whispers started to get clearer. Not words, not exactly, but a sibilant hiss, a breathy sigh that seemed to curl around my name. My name. I heard it distinctly one night when I was alone in the kitchen, the only sound a dripping faucet. I froze, every nerve ending screaming. I spun around, but there was nothing, just the empty space behind me, and the persistent, chilling whisper that faded the moment I acknowledged it. Sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself. Every shadow became a potential lurking figure. Every creak of the house a purposeful step. I started to scrutinize my own home, the one place I used to feel safe. The air felt colder in certain spots, even with the heat on full blast. Objects would subtly shift, a book on a shelf, a picture frame slightly askew. Nothing major, nothing I could definitively point to, but enough to make me question my sanity. Was I just imagining things? Was the trauma of the Martins' disappearance finally breaking me? But then Brutus would growl again, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, and I knew I wasn't alone in this. I started drawing the blinds earlier, locking the doors multiple times, as if a deadbolt could stop whatever was seeping into my life. It felt like the boundaries between my world and that something else were dissolving, slowly, terrifyingly. I felt like I was being watched, not just from outside, but from within my own home, by something that had been patiently waiting for an opening and found it in the void left by the Martins. And it wanted something from me. I just didn't know what. And that was the most terrifying part of all. The night it happened, I hadn't slept in days. My nerves were frayed, every sound a threat. Brutus was pacing, a low, continuous growl rumbling in his chest, his eyes fixed on the living room wall, the one he always stared at. The scratching had intensified, not just soft scrapes anymore, but a frantic, desperate clawing, like something trapped was fighting to get free. It sounded wet, sickeningly wet, as if whatever was doing it had no skin. The air in the room was glacial, even though the thermostat read 72 degrees. I pulled a blanket tighter around me, my teeth chattering, but it wasn't from cold. It was pure, unadulterated terror. Then the whispers. They weren't just sibilant hisses anymore. They were coalescing, forming into something almost intelligible. A chorus of faint, overlapping voices, like 100 people speaking just out of earshot, all trying to say the same thing. My name was in there, fragmented, distorted, but unmistakably mine. Anna, Anna, join us. Brutus let out a sharp, panicked yelp, a sound I'd never heard from him before, and he launched himself at the wall, barking ferociously, scratching at the plaster with his paws. A sickening crack echoed through the room. A hairline fracture spider-webbed across the paint, right where Brutus had struck. And from that tiny fissure, a thin, black liquid began to ooze, slowly, like congealed oil. It smelled like decay and something metallic, something utterly wrong. The scratching behind the wall stopped. The whispers, however, surged, growing louder, clearer, no longer fragmented. It was a single, resonant voice now, deep and ancient, yet strangely familiar, like a distorted memory. It wasn't speaking to me, not directly. It was speaking through the wall, from the wall. She opened the door. She called us. She showed us the way out. My blood ran cold. She opened the door? I opened the door. Was it referring to me finding the martens gone? Brutus whined, a terrified sound, and backed away from the wall, pressing himself against my legs, trembling uncontrollably. His eyes, usually so brave, were wide with primal fear, fixed on the spreading stain. The black ooze began to bubble, forming small, glistening pustules. Then one of them burst, and from the opening, something began to push through. Not a hand, not a limb. It was amorphous, shifting like a dark, gelatinous mass, slowly, inexorably, extruding itself from the wall. The sound it made was like wet fabric tearing, a squelching, sucking noise that made my stomach churn. The voice, now thrumming through the air, vibrated in my bones. We are free, thanks to you, and now you come with us. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was constricted, my lungs frozen. The oozing mass solidified, hardening into grotesque finger-like tendrils that began to reach out, slowly, deliberately, towards me. The air grew colder still, so cold it burned. I could see shapes forming within the blackness, shadowy outlines of faces, eyes that seemed to stare directly into my soul. They were indistinct, fleeting, but I recognized one. A faint, terrified expression belonging to Mrs. Martin. Her eyes wide and hollow, silently begging for help, or perhaps for me to join her. The tendrils stretched, lengthening impossibly fast. Brutus, with a final desperate whimper, tucked his tail and bolted from the room, leaving me utterly alone. The silence that followed his departure was louder than any scream. The tendrils were almost upon me, their tips twitching, seeking. I could feel their icy breath on my skin. The void wasn't just a hole in the world anymore. It was here, in my living room, reaching for me, eager to pull me into the dreadful echo from which it had emerged. The tendrils wrapped around me, not with force, but with a terrifying, gentle pull. I didn't feel pain, just an overwhelming emptiness, a cold so profound it burned. The shadowy faces blurred, then resolved into countless indistinct forms, all whispering my name, not with malice, but with a strange, mournful welcome. I saw Mrs. Martin again, her eyes wide, but now they held a chilling serenity. She wasn't begging for help, she was simply waiting. And then the world dissolved. My living room, the cold air, the lingering scent of decay, all gone, replaced by an infinite, silent blackness. I don't know how long I've been here, or even what here is. Time doesn't exist in the same way. I am part of the echo now. One more voice in the chorus that called to me from beyond the wall. I hear them, the Martins, and so many others. Their stories, their fears, their unfulfilled lives, all woven into this dreadful tapestry of absence. Sometimes I swear I can still hear the wind outside, or the faint, distant sound of Brutus barking, a sound that only makes the cold deeper. It's a silence that screams, a void that whispers. So I have to wonder, have you ever felt it? That strange, inexplicable cold in a room, that whisper just beyond your hearing, that feeling of being watched when no one is there? Perhaps you've heard an echo too, and perhaps it's calling your name.